up, everybody? This is Mattia, and today we're going to talk about the Moondrop Quarks, these tiny little wonders. These are a pair of single 6mm dynamic driver IMs coming from Moondrop. They're priced at around $11 to $13, and I think as an overall package, these do kick ass. A lot. A lot of ass. Too much ass. So let's hop right into the review, and the build of these does make up the statement for me as an overall package. Remember that comfort, sound that comes last. We're gonna talk about it, of course, but I want to just push in the argument of these being specifically public transport IM backup pair of or even sleeping pair. They have their use cases not only because the isolation is great on these, since they're they're actually an enclosed shell. They don't have a port. The isolation goes up to 26 decibels with these, or even better with a deep insertion and the foam ear tips. And the comfort is amazing. They are bodiless almost. They're classic, like barrel tube thing, go in a very simple thing. Yeah, it works greatly. And they're extremely comfortable, extremely small. The only gripe that I will have with these, there are actually two small problems that I have with them. One is, well, they are very clearly tiny, but the nozzle is actually bigger than what you may think. It's bigger than the Starfield's. I will argue that it's the same size as the Blessing 2 nozzle, only that the Blessing 2 has an actual body, while these are, the ear tip is bigger than them. I'm actually using the foam tips just because of the isolation, and they help out with the comfort. These do come with the standard Moondrop tips, not the spring tips that come with the Kato. So they're not the best at sealing. They didn't ever quite perfectly work for me. So I'm using the Ludos comfort tips on these. They are an acrylic shell. The cable is attached. I don't give a shit for $12. That's it doesn't matter really. And also because the cable is also these are see-through. Unfortunately, the camera ain't gonna pick up the internals because it sucks. But you can see the driver. You can see the cabling, the cable stopper, and the wiring. They actually look really cool. And the Moondrop did an intelligent thing. This is a Quark logo. I don't think you can see it, but you can clearly see that it's red and black. Very clever, way better than what Edemotic does. And yeah, for IM of such size, that's a smart move. That's a smart move. I hate when I have to look like for 15 seconds, 20 seconds, just where, a left, a right, a left, a right. Which one? And I have to do that with the Edemotics, even in the light, because the indicators are so small. These, you can see them even in the dark, it's clear. The cable is thick, nice, it's very smooth to the touch, it's soft, it doesn't fight you, and here, down the splitter, it does become thick. It's a thick boy, it's quite resilient, and I wouldn't mind really tossing these all over the place, because I don't know, they just are inspiring in the sense that they do seem very sturdy. They're extremely light. They don't weigh anything. That's the reason why we'll consider them good for a backup pair. You can toss them anywhere you want. They're very, very well built and coming around not only with a cable but the shell itself. Yeah, you're not gonna break these, I don't think so. They're better built than something like the KZDX, that's for sure. These are solid, solid. Um, so yeah, isolation, comfort, fantastic, absolutely great. Cable, decent, better than the stock Starfield cable, that's for sure. And use cases, there are a lot of them with these. You can sleep with them being so small. If you reach a correct deep insertion, you know, just like this, what I tend to do is push them in this position, then tuck them down. That's just because the shape of my ear canal implies me to do so, and then push them upwards until, my god, they reach so deep. If you actually know the fit of the ER2XR, this is sort of like that, but a bit bigger and a bit less intrusive. It doesn't go quite as deep. I don't. You can see them. You can see them. They're almost like a hearing aid, where you only see the cable and then the thing actually disappears. They're small. I told you. I was talking about two problems. One is the nozzle. The second one is unfortunately the bigger one, which is the actual microphonics coming from the cable. They're terrible, horrifying, but there's an easy fix to that, which is just wrapping the thing around your ears, which is what I do with the Animotics, and inserting them the same way I do when they're cable down. Just put them in, and with this, I don't think you can see them at all, and I cannot hear myself speaking. I can actually feel my heartbeat. That's how much they isolate. There's something close to the R2XR. No joke. So if you want to have the Animotic experience without paying, $60, $80 for the R2XR, Quarks? Really? Quarks? Holy crap. And now, frequency response and objective analysis. I feel like Resolve from the headphone show. It's time for the objective assessment. We're gonna talk about frequency response, Yeah. Pretty good. Not the best. Surely not the best. I actually have the ER2XR graph laying around just in case I want to compare. If you see that the cable is kind of crippled, I tried to film this take for about a week now, and not a single one of the takes I did came through correctly. At some point I failed for some bullshit and it just blocked myself for 5 seconds staring into nothing and thinking, what the fuck did I just say? Do I back up the video? Do I do it again? And then I do. And then I fucking die. I hope this one is the one. I said that 12 minutes ago. That's fucking sad. So, you have a decently balanced frequency response. Starting from the bass, it does have a very elevated bass. We're talking about 7 decibels. And unfortunately, it goes from 20 hertz, and to say the mid bass is actually a slightly more elevated. You can see here slightly. The mid bass is actually, I think, by 1 dB or 1.5 dBs more elevated than the sub bass. That means that the sub bass isn't quite as extended as it could be, especially considering that the Quarks do have an enclosed design. They do not have a port, and that's the cause that causes the isolation to be so great, but that also causes the sub bass to be. Now imagine closing a subwoofer up. It sounds very tight, but it doesn't quite give you the wub wub. It doesn't quite give you the rumble, the really fucking just. that's the case with these. Despite the mid-bass quantity that is shown in the graph, and that's a lot, and actually the case at 700 hertz, which means it's not that clear of a bass. Surely not as something like the ER2XR, that's for sure. But with them being an enclosed design, as at least as far as I could see, the mid bass doesn't sound quite as elevated as it seems to be in the graph. It sounds a bit more clean. It sounds a bit more tight than it will be with a port, and it doesn't bleed too much into the mid range. What it does is, in contrast with this upper mid range, that is, and of course the leaner here lower mid range, almost going down. I think it might be fine that I just point at this, because you cannot see the gray line as good as the more color one. And this of course is the critical.com phone graphs. It's his graph. If that wasn't clear enough, I'm gonna shout out him. But yeah, mid bass is surprisingly controlled despite the amount that is shown in the graph. Mid bass does take a hit. You can see it clearly here. The elevation in the upper mid range is represented not by a correct pinna gain. It's more of a slight rise, then a peak, and then it goes down completely, and it falls. It goes extends somewhat into the 8 to 9K part of the frequency response. That's the brilliance area, where you get the clarity and where you actually get the bite. And then there's the treble, the upper treble area. That's where that's actually where the problem comes from with these. The upper treble is not that extended. Yeah, it does come up here at 15K and above, but I can't actually hear that. It's not too well extended. I'll actually call the ER2XR better extended than these. And here's the graph for the ER2XR. You can clearly see that there's a slope down with these. What these actually do is they go up in this area, which is sooner than what the quarks do. So you can actually feel this a bit more, and then they actually completely die off. So the upper mid range, in comparison with the mid bass, does generate a sensation of thinness, and especially considering that the actual lower mid range area is not. You can see it here. The lower mid range area is not that elevated, and it's not particularly boosted. It's just that the fact that the mid bass does help it out and does carry the female vocals, since it's so much bass. This peak that is right here, it doesn't stab you quite as you would think it could do, but at the same time, it's not the most pleasant experience with female vocals, since they sound a bit restrained. They sound a bit closed in, almost like they're being squashed and slapped at the same time. And instead of having a correct tonality, they're a bit pushed too much, almost like you're choking them. Male vocals are fine. They do not excel in any particular way, honestly. But female vocals can sound a bit gritty. But aside from that, this is a balanced frequency response. This is what I will call balance. And if it wasn't for the fact that the IM doesn't have a port, I think I wouldn't have liked them as much as I like them right now, with the bass being not as much as it is, I think, here shown in the graph. Not because the graph is wrong, just because it is a closed port. It is a sealed IM. Um, so yeah, great frequency response for $12. Decent in the overall market. That's a decent frequency response. When compared to something like the R2XR, you can immediately see this is my standard. Of course, the R2XR made me a super fanboy of the DF target. Diffuse field, it's supposed to emulate a pair of actual speakers in a room, and you sitting them with them like physically. It's just the fact that the R2XR, being an in-ear monitor, and that actually goes very deep inside your ear, just physically doesn't have the space to recreate an actual ambient, an actual room, um, around you. It's just the physical stuff that can let it do its thing, but it does sound more relaxed. It does sound farther away. It's in comparison to the Quarks. It's as if it's something being presented to you rather than it being slapped on your face like the Quarks can do. The base of the R2XR is way cleaner. It does slope off as you reach 200 hertz. Sub bass is better heard on these than the Quarks. The Quarks do actually have a better punch than the R2XR, but the bass of the R2XR makes it so that the upper mid range, and also with the upper mid range being definitely more correct as an overall elevation, makes it so that the thinness basically disappears, and the overall tone and character of the R2XR does align with a more correct timbre, a more correct real life timbre. While the contrast of the Quarks, from going from the bass and comparing it with the upper mid range, does give a sense of fatness in the bass, but not in the sense that you hear the bass that is very elevated. It's just that the bass almost suppresses kinda the meat and bones of the upper mid range. So the upper mid range sounds definitely thinner on the Quarks when compared with the R2XR. The R2XR sounds timbrally a bit thicker and a bit more correct. That's just because the upper mid range is better executed, way better executed, and it has more space to breathe. But as an overall presentation, leaving out the graphs alone and now talking about subjectivity, I already inserted a note on subjectivity. The timbre of the ER2XR is more correct, but the one that comes with the Quarks is no slouch either. It's way more correct than something like the KZDX, and surely more correct than something like the TRM MT1. I will dare say that the timbre of the Quarks is better than the one on the Starfields. The Starfields do sound more metallic to me when compared with the Quarks. The Starfields do have a better sound stage, slightly. They do have a better depth, slightly. They have a bigger image. They have a bit more separation going on. But the imaging of the Quarks is actually very good. I wouldn't say it's going quite toe to toe with the Starfields. Starfields are very good at imaging, but it's close. It's close. You can hear clearly the instruments as they are, where they are positioned with the Quarks. The R2XR do a better job at that, just because the presentation is a bit more like you're in a room, not necessarily in the physical sense, just in the presentation and the overall disposition of the elements of the song. The R2XR does retain the placement of a guitar, a violin, a piano a bit better. It does have a better center imaging than the Quarks, and and when you go from the R2XR to the Quarks, you immediately feel like you're almost submerged in water. And when you go from the Quarks to the Edemotics, what you feel is like almost removing a veil, but you're listening to something that sounds thin and almost boring and lifeless. You adapt to it after 10 minutes immediately, and the Edemonic ER2XR sounds more correct, and the thinness sensation is gone because you have adapted to the level of bass of the ER2XR. And yeah, of course, the R2XR is the better I am, but the fact that I'm comparing and telling you, hey, the Quarks do get to the level of clarity of the ER2XR. They're close. They're very close to that. The strength of the Quarks does come from that massive clarity of that peak in the upper mid range, and the linear extension going down to 9K. That gives it a very nice, very snappy presentation that is just marred, unfortunately, by the level of bass. Damn, if the bass was centered, I don't want to say something as clean as the R2XR. Give me a bit more bit bass. I don't care. It's fine. It's a $12. It's a $12 AM. It's fine. Give me a bit better of of an upper mid range. Remove this spike. Make the upper mid range a bit more even. And I'm not asking for more upper treble. That will mean you're paying hundreds of dollars more. Unfortunately, but just if you manage to pull that a bit from the bottom that it has, if you manage to just stretch it a bit higher, that will be great. And with these small fixes in the region of the upper treble, the moderate fixes in the upper mid range, and the big fixes in the bass, the Quarks might become somewhat of a substitute, and not a cousin but a brother to the R2XR. The level of detail that the Quarks present to me is surely better than the EDX, surely better than the Blonde Yellow one. It's comparable to the Shozi and EOCP. Those were definitely detailed. Then I discovered the star fields, and I thought to myself, holy shit, that's what a single dynamic driver can do. And I got in love with my Moondrop star fields. Then I bought the R2XR thinking that they were only good for isolation. Fell in love with them, thought that they were definitely better than the Starfields. They are. The cable sucks, I wish I could change it, but sound, isolation, the R2XR just... holy shit. The only thing that I will consider better than the R2XR is the 600s. At the same time, if the 2XR kinda shits on the Starfields, the 600s shit at the same time on the R2XR. It's not even close. That thing is... the HD 600s are retarded. I've reevaluated them so much after I've adapted to the F target that immediately when I got to the point of getting used to the R2XR, the HD 600s sounded like a better, way wider version, actual real life thing. I didn't get it. When my preferences shifted from very warm to the F neutral, which is a lot of a change. I used to prefer the sound signature of the Starfields, which was Harman tuned. A lot of sub bass and a lot of mid bass, and a lot of upper mid range going on. Just fun and holy shit, yeah. I didn't like neutral signatures. I was bored with my 600s, and now I bring them to bed and make sex with them. That's what I do. So Quarks. Sorry if I got off topic so much. Quarks. There's a mic version of these for conference calls. You want to call somebody, you want to watch YouTube videos, and talk. You want to talk with somebody else at the same time. Buy the mic version. It's worth it. These as a backup pair. As a starter IM, they're so far beyond the line of the KZ, TRN, Blonde in terms of balanced tonality and pleasantness. It's not even close. And adding on to that, the comfort, the isolation, the the use, all the use cases you will have with such a small IM. And the deep fit, the fact that the isolation does come close to the R2XR. Wow, holy shit! These are good. These are good. There are some fixes to do, with the sound. I will buy these for $100 if the bass was better executed and if they fixed the issue with the upper mid-range. Even with these technicalities, which are no slouch, not comparable, not, I don't want to say not comparable, but surely not on the level of the R2XR, but I will buy these for the same technicalities for 100 with some fixes. Literally, if the Edemotic didn't exist, I will pick them up. I will pick these with those changes over the Starfields, which means over the Aria also, because they're virtually the same. Yeah, great pair of IMs. My girlfriend actually gifted me these. I thank her so much. Didn't expect to fall in love with them. So yeah, Moondrop Quarks. I'm astonished. Surely more than the. I look astonished in the KZDX video, and I was like, oh my god, poggers! But with these, I'm very impressed at how far we are going with sound and how low the prices are getting. I don't know what we can expect from this year, but if things go this way, if we continue to push such sound at that price, continue to push. We've been through a lot of changes from 2018 in the Moondrop Pro, BGV PDM6s. Those were the boss at that time. To the Kato, the Quarks, and the Blessing to Dusk, the Icos. Fuck, this hobby is getting less and less expensive. More people can get into this stuff. This is a great example. Great job, Moondrop. You're fucking great. Moondrop is dominating the market. That's undeniable. That's absurd. So yeah, great job. I'm really happy with these. Fix those issues. Sell them for $30. I will rape you. Hope you liked the video. See you next time. Bye bye.